I'm Amanda Burrell. I'm an executive producer and environmental broadcaster. I'm currently working with Al Jazeera and, amongst other things, running their flagship documentary series, Earthrise. This is a solution show that was really pioneering when it was set up over 10 years ago. Through my role as a filmmaker and storyteller, I'm really aware of the power of media to raise awareness about the climate emergency and to inspire action on it. And that's why I'm really excited about the first of its kind media strategy that the Multi-Faith, Multi-Sector Alliance is proposing to develop. I believe it has the potential to be a really valuable means of spreading and amplifying climate messages and campaigns, connecting and engaging people and communities and mobilising action. As for the Alliance itself, the plan is to develop a network of networks, one which enables content, ideas and perspectives to be shared between existing faith and secular media outlets. By media I mean TV, radio, print, social media and other online publications. As many of you will be aware, nearly 85% of the world's population identify with a religious group. What's less well known is that there are hundreds of faith-based media outlets, many with extensive communications capabilities. They serve a variety of functions, including education, spurring people into action, and sharing stories and values. I say less well known, but in fact a lot isn't known about these at all. And the first step in developing this initiative would be to conduct a thorough assessment to establish what networks already exist and to gather information about them. A survey into just some aspects of this was done in 2007, and I have some figures from that. Back then, it was roughly estimated that the number of television stations was as follows: 240 Christian, 170 Muslim, 85 Buddhist, 80 Hindu, 80 Baha'i, and 25 from new religions such as the Hare Krishnas in the West. And the Christian TV and radio networks alone had over 2 billion viewers and listeners. Now that was in 2007, and in the 15 years since then, the takeoff of digital has enabled the number of media outlets of all kinds to have grown exponentially. And it's safe to say that those figures for TV stations will have risen significantly. As I said, first off, we'll find out what today's figures are for all forms of faith media and establish the scale of the potential. One other thing to note is that there can be an assumption that faith-based media is insular and made by and for hardliners. And while there are, of course, examples of this, the opposite is also true more often than not. Last year, for example, Indonesia's largest Buddhist channel ran a series made by a Christian network about family values, and this was more popular with Muslims than anyone else. So that's one of the faith-based channels that will definitely be approaching. Now, the focus of the network as a whole will be on facilitating relationships and content sharing strategies between secular and faith organisations and networks. And the idea is that the relationships formed would be symbiotic, so content would be shared both ways. Faith networks reach parts of the world that others don't, and they wield huge influence. And so they will be a really useful vehicle for secular ones to help get that content out there more widely and more powerfully. And in turn, they could provide fresh material for the secular outlets. Local faith communities, many of which of course are in the much less well-covered global south, are valuable sources of important stories about living on the front lines of climate change, both in terms of its dreadful effects and of coping with it. And there are incredible tales of adaptation, resilience, community building, solution finding, and many of these have never been heard, let alone covered by mainstream media. Now this initiative would enable all of them to be taken up and shared and perhaps more widely. The content that flows through this network of media networks will be curated as necessary to tailor for the needs of all parties. Budget depending, some could even be specially commissioned, and as well as being shown on existing outlets, it can be gathered together and showcased on an online platform that also serves as a hub for discussion and inspiring action and further collaboration. One of my hopes for the network is that it will be able to help train the next generation of environmental journalists and filmmakers from faith communities in lower income, climate vulnerable countries who would otherwise not have the opportunity. And this is of course subject to funds, but it's just one example of the potential of the project to make a far-reaching and long-lasting difference. I'm actually making a programme at the moment here in the UK for this year's series of Earthrise, And we're looking at how faith can help enable the green transition. I spent time with Catholic nuns who run an organic farm and ecological retreat centre, Muslim community leaders who are trying to inspire behaviour change and succeeding, Hindu temples which are getting rid of plastic, Anglicans monitoring and protecting the rich biodiversity in their churchyards, and young Christian activists protesting with prayer. And I've been really impressed by the energy and commitment to climate action that has been and is gathering momentum in the faith world, and it's not generally known about more widely. And I've also been really struck by the faith's ability to cut through the massive information, data, statistics, facts and figures that are so often presented in the mainstream media, and to inspire action through touching hearts and souls as well as minds. And I think that is really important. With the climate emergency deepening, secular media needed compelling stories about it, and faith groups very aware of the role they have to play in helping communities cope with it. I strongly believe that now is the time to engage and to collaborate in order to spread climate messages, campaigns, stories, information and inspiration far and wide. Thank you very much.
So that is the fourth project that we have proposed. You can see that we have a variety of work that is already being in progress. And we have this invitation to all of you to engage in this multi-faith, multi-sector Alliance for Climate Action. During the invitation for this event, we have received the contact. If you want to be engaged with one of the initiatives, we will be meeting now as the new year starts to put more flesh in these initiatives and connecting the different networks that we will be involved in that.
A key factor here is that religious groups around the climate issue have, in many different ways over the past decade, been developing collaborations with secular groups, but there's been no platform, no community of practice to sharpen. How do you do that effectively? How do you save time? How do you get things moving more quickly? I mentioned the Interfaith Center for Sustainable Development earlier. We've had this experience also about the painfully slow pace at times of getting a solar project from the concept level through financing, through approval, into implementation on the ground with faith secular partnerships. There are absolutely ways to shorten that process, and they must be taken advantage of and widely disseminated. There's a lot of good learning that can be done together. There are resources that can flow, and I think on the level of inspiration, for too long, this is a particularly bad problem in the West, but there has been a ghettoizing of the religious sector within Western society that has deprived society on many levels of a deep source of inspiration, moral emotion, and power, which is absolutely fundamental to making the transformation that's needed. At the same time, faith groups have at times, for any variety of reasons, resisted developing in-depth, sophisticated partnerships with high-capacity secular initiatives and partners of various kinds. You break those walls down and you have a very substantial contribution to moving the world in the direction that it needs to go. And I think that's as good a way as any of closing and saying that we're looking forward to moving this initiative forward.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.